So maybe if you don't mind, put your name in the comments. Let me make sure I've got that turned on. So if you are on here and you don't have a name attached to your profile, if you don't mind, put your name in the chat. Just that way I kind of get an idea of who is on here and who isn't. So tonight we are going to talk about Colorado and the application process, the how it works. We're going to go through filling out the application. We're going to talk about kind of everything you need to know about applying in Colorado, how the point system works, all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. So my name is Josh. I created Western Hunter 101. It's a program that I put together for new and beginning Western hunters that are wanting to get out west, but are just overwhelmed and just really don't know where to start. And this is the first kind of webinar that I've done outside of Western Hunter 101, but I kind of wanted to share some stuff with you guys as well and introduce myself to you guys. We'll just jump right into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just spend some time talking about Colorado and the draw system there, kind of how it all works. And then from there, I'll tell you a little bit more about Western Hunter and kind of what we do there, a little bit about that. And then we'll hop into some Q&A if you guys have any questions about the Colorado application. So just getting started here, the application period for Colorado doesn't actually start until March 1st. So we're a few days early on that. And the reason that, so it kind of got a little bit mixed up here. I was really hoping to be able to actually pull up the application itself when we get into that part and kind of walk you guys through how to fill that out. I'm not actually going to be able to do that because the application isn't open yet. It doesn't open until March 1st. But I wanted to do this one this week because next week I'm going to do another one of these for Montana because they both kind of take place simultaneously. And I didn't want to be too deep into March waiting to do the Montana one as well. So we're actually doing this a couple days early. So I won't be able to actually pull up the application, but that's okay. I think you guys will be... You'll be able to handle it once we get through this anyways. So the draw period is March 1st to April 7th. So the deadline for that is April 7th, and that'll be at midnight on April the 7th. So you need to get your application in before that if you're going to apply or if you're going to just purchase a point. That has to be done before April 7th. You won't be able to do that after April the 7th. Colorado is a preference point state. So what that means is there's some states that use preference points and some states that use bonus points. Colorado is a preference point state. So what that means is the people with the highest number of points that apply for any given tag, they're going to be awarded the tag, and they're going to work their way down from the highest number of preference points applying for that tag down till they run out of tags. So they do have a lot of tags that you're able to draw without points. So it's not something that you have to get started, but it's definitely something that you need to know and you need to start building on. So when it comes to actually applying in Colorado, so what it costs to actually do that. So the first thing you're going to have to do when you apply is you're going to have to buy a qualifying license. You're not going to be able to get into any of the application portion until you purchase your qualifying license. And this year, well, I shouldn't say this year. What that qualifying license means is you either have to have a spring turkey tag in Colorado, or you have to purchase a non-resident, just a general hunting license. It'd probably be like the equivalent of a small game hunting license in your state. But it's just a regular hunting license. And so what that's going to cost you is $104.86 this year. So it went up just a couple of dollars from last year. One thing to remember is do not go purchase that before March 1st. So they actually, right now at this moment, you can go purchase a hunting license in Colorado, but it's going to expire in a couple days. So wait until March 1st before you buy that qualifying license. Just when you go in to apply, purchase it then. Don't go buy it now. You're going to waste $100. And then you're going to have a habitat stamp. And that habitat stamp is going to cost you $12.76. And then from that point on, you're going to have to pay an application fee. So for every species that you apply for, so if you apply for elk, deer, pronghorn, whatever, however many species you apply for, you're going to have to pay an application fee for each species. And that is $11.49. And then we'll jump into the price of the tags themselves. And we're just covering the non-resident price on these, because obviously I'm assuming you are a non-resident to Colorado is why you're here. So an elk tag is going to cost you $845.16. And that is whether you buy a bull tag or a cow tag. They're both the same price in Colorado. Deer is going to cost you $506.92. Pronghorn is going to cost you the same, $506.92. Bear is going to cost you $302.56. Now, so we talked about preference points there just a little bit. So the way that it works in Colorado to actually get points, you're either going to have to purchase those points or you're going to earn them by not being successful in the draw. So you can either purchase points, or if you apply for a tag and you're unsuccessful, then you're going to earn a point that way as well. And so let's just stick with that for a minute. Let me go back here to my page. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because there's actually, no, I don't want to do that. Let's keep going in just the regulation part of this for now. Let me scroll back up here. So there's kind of some important dates that we need to go over here. Let me get up to them. I'll scroll a long way down. Okay, so we talked about that they go on sale, or the application starts March 1st. Deadline's April the 7th. You are able to go in and change your application. So you're able to go in and edit that. And the deadline for that is April 7th as well. The draw results are going to be posted online May the 26th through the 29th. So somewhere in that time frame, if you apply for a tag, your results will be posted online. And then the payment deadlines after you've been successful in the draw, the deadline to pay is June the 12th. So they'll usually hit your card as soon as your tag's drawn. If for some reason it doesn't go through, whatever the case may be, you've got till June 12th to make that take place. And then Colorado has what they call their secondary draw, and that's going to be for deer, elk, pronghorn, and bear. And so what that is basically every tag that is not drawn during the initial draw, and any tag that is drawn and then surrendered. So that is, if somebody put in for the draw and then they turned that and they were successful, they turned that tag back in for whatever reason, those tags are all going to go into the secondary draw. And then any tag that wasn't drawn, so if they had more tags than they had applicants, all those types of tags are going to be in the secondary draw. And that starts June the 18th with a deadline of the 30th. So you're able to go back and reapply for the secondary draw if you were unsuccessful. And again, those are going to be for any tag that was surrendered and any tag that was just left over. And from that point there, the next option you have as far as Colorado goes to pick up a tag is their over-the-counter licenses. So these are going to be like your second rifle and third rifle over-the-counter that are over-the-counter, and then there are any leftover licenses at that point. So any tag that was not drawn in either one of the two draws, or any tag that was returned after the secondary draw. All those licenses are going to go for sale August the 4th at 9 a.m. And if you want a tag that's not an over-the-counter, already licensed, like a second or third rifle over-the-counter license, if you're wanting to try to pick up a leftover tag, you really need to be ready by 9 a.m. because those things sell out in a matter of minutes. So you really need to be on top of that. All right, now let's go into a little bit of what I would call kind of some theory about the application itself, or a little bit of strategy. For me, number one, I am big on going ahead and getting started building points anywhere out west. That's highly important to go ahead and get that started. You don't want to wait until you've gone on a few hunts and kind of get some stuff figured out and then realize, that you may want to go on better tag or on better hunts. So it's best to just go ahead and get started with your points now, because, then you're going to be a few years behind on building points if you don't go ahead and start right up front. And for me, there are a lot of tags that are available through the draw that you can pick up as as a second choice. So the way Colorado works in their draw, when you submit your application, you're going to get 4 choices, and that's per species. You're going to get a first, second, third, fourth choice. And so what they're going to do is they're going to go down through and they're going to go through everybody's first choice, and they're going to allocate those tags according to preference points, number of people applying, that whole deal. So they're going to go through everybody's first choice. Then once all those tags are filled and once they've gone through everybody's first choice, that's all taken care of, they come back and they go through a second time for everybody's second choice. And get tongue-tied. There's actually quite a few tags that you can pick up as a second choice in Colorado. Those are obviously not going to be maybe the quality of tag as the ones that take preference points to draw. Obviously there's going to be some reasons why those tags are available as a second choice, and you definitely need to research that out and kind of figure out maybe why that is. It may be a thing where there's not a lot of public land in that unit, or there may just be a lot of tags issued in that unit, whatever the case may be. But a lot of times those may be even better hunts than the over-the-counter hunts, though. So, they're definitely something to think about, those tags you can draw as second choice. And the cool thing about drawing your second choice is you can apply for a preference point as your first choice. So you don't even have to put a actual hunt code as your first choice. You can just put the preference point code as your first choice. What you'll do is you'll put that preference point code as your first choice, and then you can put a tag in that you want to draw as your second choice. But you need to make sure that's a tag that you can put in as your second choice if you really truly want to draw that tag. There's going to be, we'll just talk about elk for a second. There's definitely a lot of archery tags that you're going to be able to draw as a second choice. Biggest reason for that is because they took all of the archery tags last year and made them all a draw. So in Colorado, there was a lot of archery tags that were able to be bought over the counter. They did away with that this past year. 2025 was the first season that they did that. So we're still kind of in limbo when it comes to draw odds for those tags. But the thing is those units that were over the counter, the reason they were over the counter is because there was a lot of elk in those units. So they still are going to issue a lot of tags for those units. So you definitely should be able to pick some of those up. Second choice, I know there's definitely some rifle tags that you can pick up second choice for elk. There's, off the top of my head, I don't know how many there are for mule deer, but I think there's a few mule deer tags that you can pick up second choice as well. But when you go to fill that out, so when you go to put your hunt codes in, so the way it works in Colorado when you're filling out your application is each unit or each tag has its own code. So that's the code that you're going to put in when you apply. And so the way that code reads is the first digit, I guess would be the right word to use there, is going to be the species. So if it was a deer, you'd put a D as your first. If it was an elk, it would be E. We can get down here to pronghorn, make sure I don't steer you wrong. You can find this in the book as well. You can find this online, the actual code themselves. Let me get down here to pronghorn, just make sure I'm not steering you wrong. Well, I went faster than the computer wants to think. There's a lot of elk tags to scroll through here. Okay. Finally made it to pronghorn. Yeah, so for pronghorn, they use A for antelope. So you'd put your first code in as A if you were applying for antelope. And then from there, the code for the preference point is just the first digit's going to be, like I said, A for antelope, E for elk, or D for deer, and then it's going to be P99999P. That's going to be your preference point code for all of these species, and that's what you're going to want to put in if you're wanting to apply for a preference point only. Maybe you're not even wanting to apply for a tag this year. Maybe you're a year or two out from actually going on this hunt, and you're just wanting to learn about points and apply for points this year to go ahead and have something built up for next year or the next couple of years. You'll put that preference point, excuse me, as your first choice, and then if you're not applying for any more tags, you'll just leave the rest of them blank. You won't put anything in your second or third choices. But again, there's a lot of tags that you can draw as a second choice. And I highly recommend going that route, especially new, because you don't have any points built up anyways. So it's not like you're going to be able to draw a super great tag, because right now, until they change things, right now, Colorado is a preference point state. So you're not going to be able to get in on those super good hunts anyways. There are some hunts that you can draw with 0 points as a first choice. So if you're just really wanting to put a tag in your pocket, and maybe you're wanting to put the best tag you can in your pocket first, there's definitely more tags that you can draw with 0 points as your first choice. So that's an option as well. But again, I'm a big proponent on going ahead and getting started building points. So it's definitely something you kind of need to weigh out for yourself and figure out what you want to do there, kind of what your plans are and what your future looks like, what you're wanting to do the next few years. So just scroll back through my notes here. And so one thing also about Colorado is probably the number one state when it comes to actual oh my goodness, I'm tongue-tied here. Cannot believe I'm drawing a blank on this right now. Anyways, I guess I'll get back to that. Opportunity. Oh my goodness. I don't know why I couldn't spit that word out. It was sitting right on the tip of my tongue. But Colorado is definitely king when it comes to opportunity. And the reason for that is because they got the most elk. They've got way more elk than any other state out west does. They've got more mule deer than all the other states do. So they're really, really king when it comes to opportunity, and they're very liberal with their tags. But that also means, with a lot of tags being issued, that there's going to be a lot of pressure. So Colorado is definitely a state that you're definitely going to want to have your e-scouting down pat before you go. You're definitely going to need to know how to evaluate the zones of pressure, and you're going to have to just kind of go into that knowing that there is a lot of pressure there. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with hunting Colorado. I hunt Colorado quite a bit, and I actually hunt the Colorado over-the-counter rifle tags quite a bit, and those are usually the busiest times. So they're definitely. I'm not trying to undersell Colorado by any means. It's definitely a great state when it comes to opportunity, and I've never not been able to find the game while I was there. So you just gotta work through the people and find your own little honey hole and make it work. But you definitely just need to go into it knowing that it is a busier state a lot of times, especially being new. And that's the whole point of going through these steps of building your preference points now, because you're going to want to go on better hunts. You're not going to want to fight as many people forever. As you get better, as you learn how to hunt out there, because you're going to learn a lot just being there. You really need to get out there, and you really need to go, because there's only so much that anybody can teach you online or over the phone. There's a lot of things that just can't be taught, that you have to learn in person by being there. And once you start to figure out a lot of that stuff, you're definitely going to want to go on better hunts to put that knowledge and skill that you've built to work for the chances of, finding better animals and things like that. So the sooner you get started building points, definitely the better. Just keep going through my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yes, it probably will. So I think that pretty well covers it as far as how it works. The applications themselves, I really wish I could walk you guys through the actual filling out of the application, but I'm just not going to be able to do that. So I knew I was missing some stuff. So in Colorado, one big thing is leaving proof of sex. You have to leave proof of sex, and that does not count as the head of the animal. Unless you bring that animal out completely whole, and chances are that's not going to happen, because chances are you're going to shoot it somewhere that it's just not physically going to be possible to bring the entire animal out intact. So what that means is you have to leave the genitals attached to the quarter and naturally attached. So for a buck or a bull, you're going to have to leave the testicles or the scrotum, or you're going to have to leave the penis attached. Obviously, with doe or a cow, you're going to have to leave the udders and the vulva attached. And then, let's see, let me get to that other part. So one thing you need to know before you fill out your application is you are going to have proof of hunter education when you apply. So you're going to need a hunter safety card, and a number, whatever your number is, you're going to have to put all that in when you apply. And then when you get to the field, here we go. I was trying to find it here. And then when you're actually hunting, you're going to have to carry that hunter education card with you, unless you get it verified on your license. So when you fill out your application, I don't remember if there's a place for you to actually put the verification on there. If there's not when you apply, I can't remember if there is. Mine's been verified for a long time, so I don't actually look at that when I'm filling out my applications. If it is not verified on your application, it will not be verified on your tag. And the way it'll show up on your tag is there'll be a V on your tag. So hunter education is required. And you have to show proof of that. So if there's not a place to verify it on the application, what I'm getting at here is you can call out to CPW, just call one of their main offices, and they can manually put that in for you, and then it'll be on your tag. If not, though, if it's not verified on your tag, just remember that you have to carry that, because if you get checked by a game warden, they're going to look at your tag. If it's not verified on your tag, they're going to ask for it, and that's just it's just a way for them to give you a ticket, in my opinion, but it is a thing, and it's definitely something that you need to know before you get there. Let me pull this back up. So those are the two big kind of things I did not want to miss, that a lot of people don't necessarily know if you don't get in and read the regulations pretty tight. It's definitely not something that you're probably going to find, just surfing around online and looking. It's not something that people just put up there. So a lot of new guys miss that. I definitely wanted to hit those things. I think that pretty well covers as far as the how to apply and kind of a little bit of strategy on the points and kind of how that works. So with that, move back over here. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I've covered all my notes here. Okay, so yeah, that pretty well covers the actual application, like how it works. So next thing that we'll get into is I just want to talk a little bit about Western Hunter and kind of what it is. So I built Western Hunter 101 for new hunters. These are guys that have been dreaming about getting out west, but just don't know where to start, and they're kind of overwhelmed by this whole process. And everything we just covered here, so we just kind of went through the simple version. We just kind of talked about how Colorado works as far as filling out the application itself, and just a little bit into philosophy on the points themselves. But it's definitely not nearly the detail that we get into in Western Hunter 101. And it's built for like the non-resident hunter. So basically, when I say non-resident, I mean non-resident to all of the Mountain West states. So basically the guys that are in the Midwest and the East, whether it's the Northeast, South, Southeast, all of you guys, that's who this is actually built for. And kind of the reason behind it is I remember what it was like for me when I first learned how to do this. So I've been dreaming about going out west since I was a little kid. My dad and I talked about elk hunting, ever since I was little, and dreamed about it, talked about it for a lot of years. I was actually even supposed to go right out of high school to be a hunting guide. I had it lined up with a guide school, the whole 9 yards. And I'm not going. But anyways, I was right about 30 when I went on my first Western hunt. I was getting older, realized that, I've only got so many seasons that I'm actually going to be able to do that, because I spent a lot of time in the West anyways. So I understood, the physical aspect of it. And I knew, that I was only going to have so many seasons I was going to be able to do it. So I just jumped in. And one thing that really, really struck me was how hard it was to get information. I spent thousands of hours just researching this stuff, trying to get everything figured out. And honestly, I had no idea about most of the states in general. And I really didn't even know what questions to ask. So I was, a couple years into this before I realized I, needed to start building points, because I was wanting to go on better hunts as I was getting better. And I was really overwhelmed at the lack of information out there, how hard it is for a guy to really get out there. So I got to thinking about all the things that held me back. And so I started out, just kind of helping some guys out here and there, and it just kind of morphed from there. But before I actually built Western Hunter 101, so I've been working on this for a few years now, prior to even getting started. This is based off of not only my experience and the issues that I ran into, but I started interviewing guys. When I knew this is what I wanted to do, I started interviewing aspiring Western hunters from all over the country. And no joke, I've probably talked to over 200 guys from around the country, whether that be guys that have taken the course or just guys that I've just talked to on the phone and interviewed, whatever the case may be. This is all the information that's contained in Western Hunter 101 is based off of exactly what new Western hunters cannot find the answers to and what is really overwhelming to them. So yeah, getting into it there, that's what is contained within my course. We go through, I'm just going to kind of walk down through it here. That's what I was pulling up. So we start at your first tag. And it's kind of some of the stuff we talked about tonight. We just kind of just brushed on some of it tonight, but we talk about all of the options. So Colorado is, that's one that most people think about because it's the one that most people talk about. Up until this past year, they've had archery tags that were over the counter. They still have rifle tags that are over the counter. It seemed like the simplest option to get, and it may have been the simplest for somebody that didn't know what they were doing. But there's definitely a lot of other options out there as well that may be way less crowded when it comes to, just the hunter population in the field. I've been on multiple hunts that took me no points to draw that I was able to draw the first time I applied for them, and would literally see nobody the whole time that I was out. So there's definitely better hunts out there even than Colorado. So we go through what all of those options are, whether they be over the counter or whether they be tags that you can draw your first year, whatever. From there, we jump into the application calendar, because that's the next thing. You got to apply for these things at the right time. And you got to know when to actually get these tags. So we go through the calendar and let you know, because some of these options may not be available to you your first year, just depending on when you start. So it may be a next year kind of thing on some of these options. And then from there, we go through using the tools to actually narrow down what tag you want. It's not just a Colorado archery elk tag, or a Montana rifle deer tag, or whatever tag it is that you're looking at. They're specific units, they're specific tags, and you need to know how to sort those out as far as fitting you and your own personal wants and needs, kind of whatever your situation is and what you're looking to do. You need to be able to sort those tags out. So we go through all of the tools that you need to evaluate that. The next thing we jump into is building point strategies. We go through all the states and the actual cost to apply in these states and how long it's going to take you to draw some of these tags, building a plan for, your first year, your fifth year, your 10th year, just building yourself a plan according to, what tags are available, at those different point ranges and things like that. And again, we go through what tools you're going to use to actually be able to evaluate those, not just listen to something on YouTube about, a specific unit or something like that. You actually need to know how to sort these out for yourself. Next thing we get into is e-scouting. And we go through, there's a lot of philosophy behind e-scouting. It's way more than just dropping pins on a map. There's a lot of questions that you need to ask yourself before you ever start even dropping pins on a map or picking a unit itself. E-scouting is really big as far as picking these tags as well. We're going to go through the tools you're going to use to make sure you find the units that are going to actually fit what you want to do and the time of year that you want to do them. Next thing we get into is gear. I have a love-hate relationship with gear. I really have a big problem with with guys, not guys that are wanting to buy gear per se, because I don't have anything against, somebody wanting to get something. What I have a problem with is there's a lot of misinformation out there trying to make you think that you need a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily need. So we go through everything that is truly essential. It's not sponsored. It's one thing I swore from the beginning is that I would not be sponsored by any gear brands, because I definitely don't want to be recommending something and making somebody think they need it just because I'm getting paid to say so. And there's a lot of hunting celebrities, if you will, that change brands like they change their underwear. I just don't agree with that. Next thing we get into, preparing yourself. So building your mental toughness, ways to overcome those things, building your physical fitness, what actually matters, what is important to be working on, how to set yourself up to peak your performance the day you show up on your hunt. And we've got programs and partners that we're tied with to help get all of that lined out. Practicing with your weapon in actual real world scenarios. It's way more than shooting off of a bench or standing in your backyard shooting at known distances with your bow. There's a lot more to it than that. Food, what you need, why you need what you need, how to go about calculating how much to bring, learning how to ration that food out, not only to make sure that you do not run out of food before the end of your hunt, but also making sure that you're eating enough while you're on your hunt. We get into using public land, gates, signs on gates. There's a lot of misleading signs on gates that if you don't know what you're looking at could definitely dampen your hunt for sure. Places that maybe you could have went that you didn't know you could go, whatever, etc. The roads, the etiquette on the roads, some of these single track roads where you can park, things like that. Trails, there's rules to trails and, like meat and pack stock on trails, things like that. You're going to be dealing with outfitters and packers with, strings of pack horses and mules and things like that. Camping where you can and can't camp, all that kind of stuff. Collecting firewood, preparing for success. That's a big one. Meat care, from start to finish before you even stick your knife into that animal. There's a lot of things you need to know. And then being able to take care of that meat, especially, if you're earlier season, warmer weather, those sorts of things. So that's kind of what we get into in Western Hunter as far as the lessons and course itself. We also do these live calls. So kind of like what we're doing tonight, we do these same things in Western Hunter 101. We get into way more detail, and especially when it comes to the Q&A afterwards. We do these once a week about random topics, but you can obviously bring whatever question you have that week, whatever you actually happen to be working on yourself. You can bring those questions there. But we also have a private community. So we've got a private Facebook group. I created that solely because of what I see in a lot of the hunting groups. So I spend a lot of time in like the Western hunting groups on Facebook. There's a huge wide array of them. A lot of new Western hunters I have found go to those pages, and I was the same way. When I first started, they go there looking for answers, but they'll ask questions and they really get reamed in the comment section, and that really just irritates the crap out of me. A lot of times that hate's coming from guys that their dad, their grandpa, their uncle, whoever taught them how as a little kid. They've been doing this their whole life. They live there. They just have no idea what it's actually like trying to get out there. And, they beat guys up in the comment section. And it's not that any of you are not willing to put in the work. A lot of times you don't know what work to put in. You don't know what questions to be asking. And that's where, a lot of the problem is. So I created this community that goes along with this, where you guys are able to come and ask your questions any day of the week. Anytime you're in the middle working on something and you need an answer, you can go there. You can post your questions. I'm able to communicate other things with you there as well. And there is no fear about that. And for those of you, I know there are some guys that were tuning in that I have already talked to on the phone, and some of you guys that I haven't talked to on the phone yet. But the guys that I already have talked to, they already kind of know the spiel about why that is. Before I put you in the private community, I do want to hop on the phone with you, basically just to kind of talk to you and talk a little bit more about what we do and learn a little bit more about you and kind of what you're having trouble with, et cetera. And that also helps to kind of weed things out as far as we're not bringing in any bad apples, because it is a private community where guys, need to be able to ask whatever question it is that they have. I've helped a lot of guys from all over the place, New York, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, all down through the South and the Southeast, guys from Virginia, guys from West Virginia, Georgia, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, you name it. They're all over the place. Texas, even all the way out to South Dakota. So I've helped guys from all over the country. I've even helped guys that have been on a lot of guided hunts. So that's one thing I see a lot is there's a lot of recommendation for new guys to go out with guys and outfitters. And I don't discourage that or necessarily disagree with that, because it is a really good way to up your odds, if it is a good reputable guide or outfitter. But one thing you don't learn is everything that you actually need to know to plan your hunt. They take care of all this stuff for you. I actually have a lot of guys that have taken my course and that are in Western Hunter 101 program that have been on several guided hunts in the past, and they still did not know how to do all of this stuff. those guys have gained a lot, which kind of surprised me at first. I figured, those type of guys would know more than that, but apparently that's not something they teach much of. So that pretty much covers what we do in Western Hunter 101. That's all the things that we cover. So let me back out of this thing real quick. I just pulled up the chat here. Ant, how are you doing? I was just messaging you today. Well, I guess if there aren't any questions on this, so for tonight we are offering 20% discount. And so, Ant, it's probably a good thing that you hopped on here before we talked on the phone Saturday. There's a code in the chat. Go ahead and click on that link. That way you can have that. That way, after we talk, you'll be able to use that. I think that was the last thing. I'm typically used to just doing these with the guys in the group itself, and we just chat stuff. I'm not used to having to remember all these extra offers here. So, all right. With that, I think we're just going to wrap it up here, and I really thank you for your time.